The emerging and ever-growing world of AI. When you hear AI, are you in the camp of people who find it useful and enjoy using it as a tool? Or maybe you're in the camp of people who stay completely away from AI and are apprehensive about it. Maybe the visions you get in your head are something like the Terminator movies. So today we're going to have a conversation with a special guest about AI as it is emerging in our world today, the uses for it, and maybe some things to watch out for as you're using it. So I hope you'll grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever beverage you're interested in drinking. Sit back, join the conversation because it's time for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Well, good morning and happy Saturday, or as Kim, our friend, would say, good morning, afternoon, and happy Catterday. We're glad that you're here with us on Coffee Breaks with Steve. I am not Steve. It would be interesting if I was. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, obviously, I am not a Steve.
I'm Karissa, and I'm the director here at Coffee Breaks with Steve. For those of you who are coming back and joining us, you all know that our regular host, Steve, is traveling right now. And he actually is out of the country with his wife, Carol. They're on a nearly month-long trip right now. They're about just a little more than halfway through the trip at this point. And so a couple of weeks here, myself and our other regular guests and hosts, Chelan Shepherd, we've been running the shows and talking with our guests and talking about topics. So you'll get us for a couple of more weeks. Well, I think you have us just this week. And then I believe next week we're on a hiatus, just in case I forget to mention that, but I think that's coming up. And then we'll be continuing with Steve going after that. So you guys can look forward to his return soon. But I do want to mention one of the things that Steve likes to do when he is traveling, if my mouse will work with me here, is he likes to play a game called Travenger Hunt. And basically, if you follow him on Facebook, you can get special clues that he likes to give out along his trip there. And you can join in the fun in the comments, make your guesses based on the clues. And there is actually a prize at the end of this little adventure that he likes to take. So it's a really, really fun game. The prize is totally worth it. I've won a couple of times and I treasure my grand prizes. And it's really just a fun way to connect with Steve while he's on his vacation and learn something new. Of course, Google is allowed, but it's always more fun if you can try to figure out the clues on your own. He's been to some very interesting places over the last week even. So it's a really fun way to participate. And then, of course, he'll be back in a few weeks. I want to take a second to say good morning to Kimberly, Rick, and Jerry. We're glad you guys are here with us. If you haven't said hello in the chat already, make sure that you are chiming in. We want to know that you're here. And that's the best way to let us know that you are joining in on the conversation today. We're going to be talking about an interesting topic today, but before we get there, I want to share our sweet and savory. Oh, also, you might have seen that in our announcements for this week that it was supposed to be myself and Chelan who are hosting today. Unfortunately, Chelan is sick, and we're really sad that she couldn't make it today, but she sends her greetings to everybody, and she looks forward to being back with us. But I wanted to mention that because I know she gets very excited about our charcuterie here on our Sweet and Savory. So in honor of her, charcuterie. So this week, Sweet and Savory, not so much sweet, but this coming week is the anniversary of 9/11. I know so many of us remember exactly what happened and what we were doing on that day many years ago. And it's a somber reminder of how far we've come, how far we need to go, and all the things that we've grown through as a country. And hopefully we'll continue to learn from as we move forward. But that is coming up this week, and we never want to forget that. We always want to remember the lives that were affected and honor those people. And we have a birthday coming up. Mr. John Harris, family member John, he is having a birthday on the 7th. So tomorrow, John's birthday. Happy birthday, John. We love celebrating that with you every year. And we hope you have a great day. If you have a special day coming up this week or coming up anytime soon, anytime on the calendar, really, and you want to make sure that we are participating in spreading the news about that or sharing in that excitement with you, please let us know about it. It could be anything. It could be an anniversary, a birthday, bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, whatever. I mean, your own personal holiday that you've created. Let us know. You can email us at cbwsteve@comcast.net, and we'll put that on our calendar so we can celebrate with you. All right. So when I get into today's topic, I'm hoping it's going to be an interesting topic. I think it is one of those topics when we were discussing doing it that it could be potentially polarizing. I think people have very strong opinions one way or the other in a lot of cases about this topic. So we're talking today about AI, and I originally thought of this topic because it's actually something that's fairly new for me in my personal life. I've been avoiding anything having to do with AI for a really long time. And I had family members, namely Steve and Chelan, who kept on mentioning, have you tried this AI yet? Have you used this for anything? I was using this for this project. And I was like, I really should look at it. And so started kind of dabbling it a little bit. And I was shocked at how much I was actually getting out of the particular tool that I was using. I've really only used one AI tool personally. But I know that there's a lot of people who absolutely will have nothing to do with AI. If they can avoid AI, they will. And I think some of that comes from our apprehension around plot lines and storylines from films that we grew up with. You know, we think of the movie Terminator and we think of The Matrix and we think of kind of these scary end of the world ideas that could come from machines taking over. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of the concepts in those films starting to come to life. And so I think it's really natural to be nervous about it. There's concerns about privacy, there's concerns about, you know, this, that, and the other thing. But being new to AI myself, really not having a lot of experience with different tools, we wanted to bring on somebody who had a little bit of insight into where the security risks might be with it, maybe different ways that we can use AI. And so I'm going to bring on our guest today, somebody we haven't seen in a while, and we're very excited to have back on the show. We have our AI cybercat and cybersecurity guru, Chris Glavin, is back with us today. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so happy that you're here. We kind of sprung this on him. I was like, so do you want to talk about AI? And he's like, what are we talking about?
Yes.
So it's like, when you say talk about, what do you mean? So, so you've used AI. You're in the cybersecurity field, and you've used some AI. What kind of AI tools have you used?
So I've actually dabbled in AI for a little while in various job roles. We've had occasion to either use AI or help customers who want to use AI.
Mm,
Um, and for a long time, I was kind of in the camp of, growing up watching Terminator and The Matrix and iRobot. Um, uh, yeah, I was a little apprehensive and wary, and I still am. Um, but I have I have spent some time trying to understand how AI works, and part of the part of the misconception is that we look at those robot apocalypse movies, and we think of AI as what it actually stands for, which is artificial intelligence, but we think of AI as a thinking, reasoning, uh, self-preserving sort of intelligence, like an,
like a
an actual
sentient
consciousness.
being, like a creature
Right.
of some kind. Yeah.
AI in the movies is portrayed that way. AI in real life is not really there yet. Not, I would say, even very close.
Mm,
What we think of as AI in our real world is just a computer that's designed to sound natural when it spits text back out to you, or in some cases, pictures or things. But there's still ways that it can be used incorrectly. There's still ways that
yeah.
it can be used to, it's just like any other tool in technology. It can be used for good or it can be used for harm, and it depends on how well you understand it, and it depends on what your motivations are.
Right. So you've worked with customers who've wanted to use AI. Have you used AI for anything in your personal life, like personal projects, or just kind of for fun in any situations?
Well, so I'm 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 really banking on the fact that nobody at my current organization is watching, which they're probably not. But in my current job, one of the things that they wanted me to do, that I told them when they interviewed me, this is not in my wheelhouse, is
Mm,
web design.
yes.
And within 3 months, they were asking me to build websites for some of their sister companies, to which I kind of rolled my eyes and said, okay, well, I told them I don't really know how to do this, but maybe a fun and interesting challenge. The time constraints made it impossible for me to actually go and learn.
Mm,
In my coursework, I for my degree program, I took some basic web design classes. I have a basic understanding of like HTML and CSS
Right.
and JavaScript, but it's very high level, very 30,000 foot view. There's no real meat and potatoes, I would say. So, but I have enough knowledge of how web design works and how it can work to be dangerous, and just enough to know how to ask the right AI model the right questions.
Mm.
When this is actually a fairly common thing that people use AI for these days, is it's called vibe coding. And vibe coding is where you don't really know the language you're working in, but you just kind of have a sense of what you want your end product to be.
Right. The
And
big
so you
picture.
just you're asking the AI model to write you to design you, say, a website based on how you want it to look, how you want it to function, but you're just basically you're going off the vibe that you want. Um, Hence vibe coding. And it's particularly um, there are web programmers and web designers who use that, but they also know how to go back and look through the code and make sure that it doesn't have any security
Bugs.
gaps,
Yeah.
bugs, basic functionality flaws. Um, the the downside where people kind of use the term vibe coding in a negative or derogatory sense is kind of the same way that security researchers talk about script kiddies. They're people who just kind of find something and use it to wreak havoc, but they don't really know how anything works. So in my case, I really was truly vibe coding. I did not understand the languages that I was working with well enough to be able to design a website in any reasonable amount of time.
Mm.
But within 6 weeks, I was able to design and stand up and get working two different websites that are
Because you had that
modern,
framework from the
because I
AI.
knew I have enough of an understanding of how AI works to be able to ask it the right questions and
To
use it
fill
to
in the
help me
gaps.
troubleshoot the pieces that weren't working. And I
Right.
know enough to know that it's not going to be secure when I do it that way. So how do I limit the risks instead of trying to solve it because I don't know it well enough to solve it?
Right. And that's the thing,
Don't tell
like, I
anyone.
think I think when people think about I think it's easy to say, I would only need to use it in a work setting, or I can't really imagine how I would use it in my daily life. I was one of those people because I work in a preschool setting. I don't work in any kind of technology. I'm not even on a computer for work. And so using it for my daily life just seemed like I have no reason to even touch this. And I was kind of interested in trying some projects that I was like, well, I'm just going to try. I wonder if ChatGPT, which is one of the most well-known, popular, just easy to
Yep.
access because
They
they
were
have
the
the free
first.
version. Yes. And so I'm like, I'm just going to hop on ChatGPT. I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to see if I throw this question out there or this prompt out there, what will happen? And
Mm-hmm.
I actually, I'm going to try something here. We're going to see if this is going to work. But I'm going to share my ChatGPT screen here because I am shocked over the last less than 3 months that I've been using ChatGPT, if I can find it, how much I've actually used it for. Because one of the things that I personally struggle with, maybe it won't find it now. One of the things that I personally struggle with is that I'm a creative minded person without creative talent. Oh, now it's oh, there it is. So it's like I love the idea of, can you see the screen? I don't know if you can see it on your side if I share it. Hopefully everybody can see this. This over
I
here,
don't see it.
hopefully the people who are watching, guys, put in the chat if you can see what I'm sharing. It should be a white screen to say Chat GPT and have things the American music industry can learn from K-pop is one of my most recent searches. And so this is basically, if you can see it, hopefully you can. Um, I want to do a YouTube on my YouTube channel that I just started. I wanted to do a little piece on what I feel the American music industry could learn from K-pop. Now, I know kind of the basic points that I would want to go over, but I wanted help with kind of packaging it in a way that I could do kind of some bullet points and just say K-pop versus the US and what's a takeaway. And so here I have, a handful, 10 points that I can use to make a video with, and I can use that for outlining it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
simple stuff like that. I've used it for, I have a project in the works where I'm probably going to be starting a radio show soon. And the knowledge of music that I have for the radio concept that I pitched is pretty limited. It's one music group within a genre, and I'm looking at the
Mm-hmm.
whole genre. So for me, researching all of the artists and groups within that genre quickly enough to make playlists to have them so that I'm prepared ahead of time would take so long that I can go on to
Correct.
ChatGPT and I say, make a playlist of K-pop artists with this theme, and it'll throw out a bunch of options and why they fit the theme, and I can scale off of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been super shocked at how much and how many little projects, even things like designing the logo for my brand that I've come up with for the YouTube channel and the radio program
Mm-hmm.
and my fan club and stuff, it'll create images for you. Now I'm using the free
Yeah.
version, so it only creates, so many images and there's limits to
Right.
that. But being somebody who has a creative mind but no like artistic talent, that has been amazingly helpful, far beyond what I even imagined I could use it for.
Yeah.
So I love the idea that you can take AI and get creative with it, even where you might be lacking in an area, like for example, lacking in the web design. It can help you fill in those gaps, especially when you're strapped for time and you don't have the time to learn all those things or research all those things. Now, one of the concerns with AI, and I know this is something that universities have been cracking down on, is the abuse of using AI and not putting in the work where you should be putting in the work. So, for example, students using AI to write whole entire essays and projects for them and
Mm-hmm.
basically learning nothing from it. And that's something that I think there's a fine line. There's a fine line between telling your job, this is not in my wheelhouse, but you guys are asking me to do this, so I'm going to have to try to fill in the gaps as quickly as possible, and I'm just not going to do the work, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's so there's all sorts of things to consider with AI because there are there are people who consider it a tool. It's,
Mhm.
another arrow in the quiver, or maybe it's just maybe it's a second quiver of really powerful arrows.
Mhm.
Um, and there's some people who see it as a replacement. And there's all sorts of there's privacy and security concerns, but there's also the moral aspect of it. You and this plays a lot more into some of the stuff that we remember as kids. The way that AI was portrayed is you just because you can doesn't
Mm,
mean you should.
yeah.
And the apocalypse, the robot apocalypse, in those movies has always come about because we got so busy. It's like Ian
Jeff
Malcolm says in
Goldblum's
Jurassic
line.
Park. You
Yeah.
you you were so preoccupied with whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should.
Yeah. One of the best lines, because that applies to so many things in life these days. It's like, I can do it, so I do it, but
The
should you have
the
done it in the
other
first place?
so there's different aspects of the morality too, because there's the user side of the morality. Should you
Mhm.
be using AI as a replacement for actual learning or work or research? But there's also the AI model designer side.
Right.
The way that these models work is it's it's predictive text is what it is.
Yeah.
It's an evolution of predictive text. It's the the AI engine. It's actually called an LLM, or a large language model, and it's all based on breaking down each word or each part of each word, and that all gets into the way that they've designed the engine. uh, it predicts what it thinks you're trying to prompt it, and then it pulls from the database of everything it's been trained on. And I mean,
Right.
ChatGPT, some of these AI models have basically just been fed the entire garbage disposal container of everything on the internet. So that means that you're getting relevant information. Say if you're trying to troubleshoot a technical problem, you may be getting uh, you may be getting snippets from Microsoft's documentation or whatever documentation, which is the actual user handbook of
Mm-hmm.
this is how this works. But you may also be getting some random person who
Reddit
doesn't know what they're
comment.
talking
Yeah.
about post from Reddit. And say you're asking for an image or you're asking for an understanding of some concept. Some of those AI models are also trained on data that they've been given access to that may be copywritten.
Yeah.
You're talking about other people's research papers. You're talking about other people's uh, artistic. Yeah. Um, Kimberly probably has some interesting insights on some of these concepts, but there was a case in federal court. I don't remember if it was the Supreme Court or not recently, where artists were trying to bring copyright restrictions to AI models and saying,
Right.
our creative work is being plagiarized, was their claim, because it's being sucked in by these AI model training sets and then spit back out for anybody who wants it
Yeah.
without having to pay for it and without attributing it to us. And in a lot of cases, they weren't even asking for compensation. They just want the work is out there, but and this gets into a whole lot of other things about freely available things like stories, writing, artwork that people don't want to have to charge people for. But if you're going to use it, attribute it, credit
Yeah.
the original creator.
Know
And
how to do that. Yeah.
AI models are under no obligation to do that. So there's a morality and an ethics side of the AI model itself and the people who create them on just because you can suck in all this data and spit it back out without having to give credit to the people who actually created that doesn't mean you should.
Right. And Kimberly makes a good point here, all the things that weren't thought about before. And I think it's one of those situations where you don't know what the problems are, where the kinks are sometimes until you're in it and you're like, okay, we didn't think about that aspect. And now we have to go back and
And how many times
change and
in
adjust.
the development of technology I mean, you even look at the internet. When the internet
Hmm.
first became mainstream in the mid 90s, there was very little regulation. Things that I mean, now you have to really go to the dark, murky corners of the seedy side of the internet to be able to find things like, gee, how would I make a homemade bomb?
Yep.
In the 90s, you could Google search. In
And
fact,
it
it
was
wasn't even
there.
Google search. It was AOL or Ask Jeeves
Yep.
or something like that. This
MSN
is
or
before the
something.
days of YouTube and before the days of Google search, even, where you could find information about anything with no restrictions and no
Yeah.
regulations on the internet. And now, it was kind of the same thing. It's taken us 20 or 30 years, but we've gotten to the point where we started it and then we realized, oh, maybe
Oh
we
dear.
should put some guardrails on this.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the things we haven't touched too much on, we've mentioned, but we haven't talked about how AI affects us is security. Things, that I'm doing, for example, like making, set lists for a radio show or, hey,
Mm-hmm.
design a graphic for this fan club. I wouldn't think of that as potentially giving any of my security away, but where are the security risks when it comes to AI? How does that affect the everyday user?
And that's a big question in and of itself. But there's security concerns and there's privacy concerns, and they're not the same thing.
Mm.
So security is looking at, um, giving away sensitive information that my screen just locked on me. Hopefully you can still see me.
We can still see and hear you.
Excellent. Uh, so there's security concerns where it comes to things like giving away access. This is a problem with things like vibe coding, where people who don't understand what they're doing are trying to create things that other people can consume on the open web, and they'll unintentionally hard code things like API keys or passwords, or even make it so that somebody who knows what they're doing, even if it's not uh, right there, people who know what they're doing um, with their browsers can uncover things
Mm.
like that. So there's the actual security concerns where you may be unintentionally giving somebody access to something that they shouldn't have access to, which
Right.
can lead to all sorts of other problems. Where privacy is concerned is things like when I'm asking an AI model a question, uh, am I giving it personal information? Because all of that information, and this is a general privacy concept, is that whatever information you provide is out there somewhere.
Right.
And where things are being stored, if they're being stored, how they're being stored, and how long they're being stored, who has access to them. Say you're doing a research paper for a thesis on the history of people making homemade bombs and using them for domestic terror things. If that information is sent out and it's being monitored by somebody, and they say it's some government agency, whether it be yours or someone else's, say for example you have AI models being developed by different groups in different nations, and they don't all have the same rules about what people can and cannot ask the AI model. And so if you trigger certain things, that can lead to the people who are in charge of the people who have created the AI model to say, hey, give me information on that person. Give me the information you have on that person. And are they obligated to do that? If they are,
Right.
how much information are they obligated to give you? A lot of people who are just touching AI models and LLMs for the first time will usually do what you're doing, where they'll just sign up for a free account. And there's paywalls. If you want to
Yeah.
be able to use it more than a certain amount, if you want to make regular use of it, if you want access to the extra features and all of the really high powered stuff, you have to pay. That
Yeah.
usually includes giving them, registering an
Card
account, which means you're giving
information.
them your name, you're giving them your email address, you're giving them sometimes your home address, and
Yep.
sometimes, and almost always, you're giving them payment information. Well,
Yep.
now who has access to that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's security concerns, and then there's privacy concerns, and both
Yeah.
come into play depending on what you're doing and how you're using AI models.
Right. Well, I honestly think that it's one of those things that is going to be kind of a debate for a long time to come. I think, especially the more the technology grows and changes and the more ways they find to use it. Again, that question, we can versus we should. I think the debate over AI is only going to continue to grow. What are your feelings about that? Do you think people are going to get
We're
used to it,
we're
or?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to the rise of the internet, um, it was, I mean, it's there are still things, even uh 30-40 years later, that are still being debated as far as morality, ethics, legality, what matters to which country. I mean, you even look at here about a decade ago when GDPR became a thing. And for anybody who's not familiar, I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but GDPR is a set of regulations that was enacted in European countries that that governs the privacy of people's data and what you are and are not allowed to use people's data for. In America, we have some of that same legislation, but it's not as strict. It's not as
Right.
guardrailed. But anybody who's making things for people to consume on the internet that is going to be potentially, servicing customers who are European have to abide by GDPR regulations. And I think, it's that was 2015 to 2020, I think, somewhere between 2015 and 2020, 30 years after the internet became
Right.
a thing,
Relevant.
and 20, 25 years after it became commonplace in everybody's lives,
Right.
we're still working on regulating it. We're still fine tuning it. We're still debating about it. I talk a lot about how social media in the last 15 years has impacted the way that we interact with each other, and the way that we think, the way that we are able as a society uh, to be guided in our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big hot topic right now, and that's something that wasn't even on our radar in the mid 90s because
No,
social media wasn't a thing.
it wasn't here. We
So,
didn't have to deal with it.
I think we are uh, just starting to scratch the surface of the debate and the process of fine tuning how we use AI.
Awesome. Well, Christopher, I appreciate you joining in on this conversation today. I think having that cybersecurity viewpoint of it is something that is really useful because, again, when you're not using it all the time or you're only using certain aspects of it, it's really easy to forget the ways that we need to be aware of the safeguards and how things might be used against us. So I appreciate you joining on the conversation today, and we're glad we had you back, and we'll look forward to having you again.
Absolutely. And I must say to Kimberly and everybody else, good meowing and happy Saturday.
Thanks so much, Chris. Well, I think that was a really, really interesting conversation. I hope that you guys got some stuff out of that. I want to talk to you about what is coming up. And also, if you continue to have thoughts on this topic, because I think it is such an interesting topic and there's so many different views on it, please continue to put those in the chat because we want to be able to go back and look through all of those and join in on that conversation on that side as well for any topics we missed. I know Chelan had mentioned a viewpoint from the environmental standpoint, which we didn't get into today. And that's kind of like a whole nother topic to get into. So definitely continue on that conversation. But I want to let you know what's coming up on coffee breaks. So that was last week's. Maybe I have the wrong weeks up here. So next week we have a hiatus. We will not be on next week. We're going to take a little break. We're going to let Steve and Carol settle back in at home. They should be finishing up their travels at that point. And so next week, do not count on coffee breaks. We will see you the following week for a very special conversation with a good family friend of ours, Kate White, called Leading with Compassion. And Kate, as a nurse and as a mom, has several different viewpoints on this that I think are really unique and really passionate. And I hope you guys will join in on that conversation with us on the 20th. And we are still looking for those of you who are interested in talking about your experience with book clubs, or if you know somebody who has experience with book club, we would like to do a topic on this. So if you're interested in appearing in or know somebody who might be interested in appearing in an upcoming episode of Coffee Breaks to talk about experiences with book clubs, please email the information for yourself or the person that you know to cbwsteve@comcast.net. Make sure that you give us a name, best email address and phone number, and make sure that the book club club is the subject, so we know to open that up and get back to you on that. And if you have a topic or a guest that you would love to see here on Coffee Breaks with Steve, we're always looking for interesting new conversations to have, either amongst ourselves and with you guys, and or with guests, new and interesting guests to bring on the show. Please get us those details as well at cbwsteve@comcast.net. We would love to hear your ideas on that. We want to remind everybody that we are on YouTube every week. And so if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, we know there's a lot of people who actually don't use Facebook, which is our primary focus in terms of the live chat, but a lot of people don't use Facebook. And so if you know somebody who might enjoy our topics and guests on here but maybe are not on Facebook, YouTube is a really great way to share Coffee Breaks with Steve with them. So we encourage everybody to go like, subscribe, share, especially if you have a really great episode or a guest that you really loved. Make sure you get those out there, share it on your Facebook. Maybe people just haven't found us yet on Facebook, so we appreciate everybody who does that with us. And yeah, so I want to thank everybody who joined in the conversation today. And hopefully, I'm going to get myself back up here where I'm supposed to be. There we go. Every week, there's got to be something. We appreciate everybody who stuck around with Chelan and I as we've been hosting Coffee Breaks for the last couple of weeks without Steve. We know you look forward to having him back, but we appreciate everybody who's been joining in on the conversations with us. We really enjoy helping out and doing this when we get the opportunity. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. And of course, as always, we want to invite you to find a way to make a difference in your world this week. And we'll catch you in a couple of weeks on the next episode of Coffee Breaks with Steve.